There is a quiet kind of courage that does not roar. It does not raise flags. It does not shout slogans. It does not seek the spotlight. And yet, it shakes the foundations of every structure built on illusion. To be truly free in an unfree world, not as a concept, not as rebellion for rebellion's sake, but as a way of being, is perhaps the most radical act of all. This freedom is not found in escape, not in indulgence or impulsivity, not in chasing every fleeting desire and calling it authenticity. That is not freedom. That is just another form of bondage wearing a new mask. Real freedom is quieter. It asks us to sit still in the noise, to remain present while the world rushes past, desperate to distract itself from itself. It is the capacity to inhabit your own essence without apology, without explanation, without needing the world to clap an approval. And this is terrifying to those who have forgotten themselves. They will call you arrogant for not begging for validation. They will call you strange for walking away from the game. But what they really mean is, how dare you live without our permission? You see, we are born into a theater of roles. From childhood, we are handed scripts. Be good. Be agreeable. Be successful. Be what makes others comfortable. And in return, they offer you acceptance, a conditional love that only lasts as long as the performance. But deep down, something ancient stirs, a subtle ache, a whisper in the silence, the sense that you were not born merely to comply, but to become. And what does it mean, truly to become? It means dropping the mask, even if it cost you the audience. It means listening to the still voice beneath the noise, even if no one else can hear it. You begin to realize that your soul is not here to entertain, not here to be understood, but to understand, not to fit in, but to illuminate. In a world where speed is worshipped, you slow down. In a world obsessed with image, you become transparent. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, you become silent. And that silence echoes deeper than 1,000 cries. The truly free person does not seek to destroy the world. They seek to no longer be imprisoned by it. And in doing so, they light a candle that cannot be extinguished. The fire of presence, of dignity, of truth. But the path toward this kind of inner freedom is not paved with comfort. It is carved by solitude, by honesty, by the slow unraveling of everything false you once mistook for yourself. You will lose friends. You will lose identities. You will lose the comfort of belonging to the noise. And yet, in that quiet unraveling, you will begin to feel the first real breath of your existence. Most people don't want freedom. They want safety in chains that they've grown used to. They call their routines purpose, their distractions joy, and their self-forgetting sacrifice. But the soul doesn't want comfort. It longs for truth. And truth is never convenient. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't align with trends. It doesn't make you popular. It strips you bare. It shows you the masks you wear and then asks, gently but firmly, Are you ready to let this go? And you may hesitate because those masks once protected you. They helped you survive. They made others love you. But they are not you. And the longer you wear them, the further you drift from your own soul. To be truly free is to risk everything false in exchange for one moment of what is real. To stand in the rawness of your own being and say, "This is who I am." No performance, no apology. And here's the strange part. When you stop performing, you begin to see others more clearly. You no longer fall for the illusions they wear. You see the pain behind the arrogance, the fear behind the aggression, the deep longing behind the constant need to be seen. You begin to understand that most rebellion is still reaction, still tethered to the thing it claims to oppose, still dancing around the fire of ego, just in a different costume. But true rebellion is stillness. Not the stillness of resignation, but the stillness of presence, of a mind rooted in being and a heart unchained by expectation. That is what terrifies the world most. Not your words, but your peace. Not your arguments, but your authenticity. Not your resistance, but your refusal to be anything other than whole. And that wholeness is not something to achieve. It is something you remember, a home you return to. Freedom is not out there. It is in here, in the way you breathe, in the way you walk, in the way you choose silence over spectacle, depth over noise, truth over performance. It is the quiet defiance of someone who no longer needs the world's permission to exist. And in that defiance, you become untouchable. Not because nothing can harm you, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. There is a kind of silence that isn't absence, but presence in its purest form. Not the silence of avoidance, but of fullness, of a being that no longer needs to explain itself. When you reach this place, words become sacred. You speak less, but everything you say carries weight. You no longer argue to win, but to understand, and often not even that, because you've realized most truths cannot be spoken, only lived. This is not detachment. It is intimacy of another order, an intimacy with the essence of all things, with trees, with time, with the quiet hum beneath existence. You walk differently, not faster, not slower, but with the presence that bends reality around you. Some will notice it. They'll say you feel different, that your eyes seem clearer, your energy more still. And some will feel threatened by it. Because in a world addicted to distraction, your peace becomes a mirror, reflecting everything others are trying to avoid. Do not resent them. Do not try to convert them. Just continue walking your path, because you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to remember yourself, to shed what was never yours, to live with such honesty that your very presence gives others permission to be real. Clarice Lispector once wrote, "Liberdade é pouco, o que desejim ainda não tem nome." Freedom is not enough. What I desire still has no name. This is the ache of the awakened soul, the longing not just for liberty, but for something deeper, a state beyond language, beyond validation, beyond even the self. A merging, a dissolving, a remembering of the eternal pulse beneath the skin of the world. When you begin to taste this, you understand why so many remain asleep. Because waking up is not gentle. It shakes your bones. It burns your illusions. It demands the death of who you thought you were. But after the fire, something else arises. Not a better version of you, but a truer one. And that truth does not need fixing. It does not need branding. It does not need to shine. It just is. And in that being, you become everything the world told you to chase. Not by striving, but by surrender. To live as a free being in an unfree world is not to shout louder, nor to fight harder, but to become the silence that cannot be silenced. A stillness that defies definition. A presence so rooted in truth that even the storms bow in reverence. Freedom, you see, is not the removal of constraints, but the refusal to be internally caged. It is to wear the chains lightly, because they no longer define you. Even if the world demands that you play a role, you know now, the role is not the actor. The actor is not the soul, and the soul was never meant to perform. Real rebellion begins in the refusal to betray yourself, in saying no to what numbs you even when it's popular, in choosing integrity over comfort, truth over applause, depth over noise. You may not fit in, you may walk alone, but solitude with your soul is sweeter than any crowd that asks you to forget who you are. This is the courage of the spiritual path, not to escape the world, but to walk through it awake. To love deeply, without clinging. To act without attachment to outcome. To serve without losing yourself. And in doing so, your very existence becomes a quiet revolution. You won't need banners or speeches. You won't need to burn the system to the ground. You will simply live in such alignment that the system begins to tremble because it cannot touch you. This is what Camus meant. Not a loud rebellion, but an existential one. A freedom so absolute that your very breath is an act of defiance. The world may never applaud you, but the soul will know. The trees will know. The silence between your thoughts will echo back. You remembered. You became free, not because the world changed, but because you did. And that was always enough.